Hello, friends, once again. My name is Nagwekar. I am the project lead for the Homemaker series at tellmeyourstory.biz. That's tellmeyourstory.biz. And I welcome you to the second session of the Homemaking Talk series. I am privileged to have with us Chrisanne Creado, Dr. Sayeed, Sister Philomena, and Noella D'Souza this evening. We are going to continue the discussion of the term homemakers beyond gender or domesticity. The topic, in fact, for this session is homemaking the self, understanding philosophical and psychological underpinnings of mental health. So, as you may get from the title, our analysis here really begins with the individual. Before we move to families, before we move to communities, we need to talk about each human being in isolation. Because it is a simple truth, after all, that we are born alone in our body, in one mind, and we die alone. And before all along, with finding solace in professors, pastors, in family, in friends who are like family, or in love, we must know or be in the realm of knowing of how to find solace in ourselves. In this process, how do you feel at home with yourself, your mental health, your spirit, your soul, whatever you may call it? How do you keep that functioning at a happy, healthy level in the 21st century? Before we begin, quick reminder that Tell Me Your Story calls for submissions on the story prompt Homemakers. That's Homemakers. The deadline is 20th September, so plenty of time. Registrations are also open for the writing program season 3 in association with Simon and Schuster. Right. Enough waffling. Allow me to introduce our panelists. First up, we have Sister Philomena D'Souza. Hi, Sister Philo. How are you today?
Hi, I'm keeping good. Just returned
Yeah.
just returned to Bombay yesterday. I was out. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Because Philomena D'Souza, Salesian sister of Don Bosco, Masters in Psychology, has traveled the world. She's been working in the field of youth empowerment, women's empowerment for over 30 years. She has conducted workshops on feminist awareness and gender issues, women leadership training programs, education to love and human sexuality, psychosexual and psychospiritual integration in religious life, midlife transition and spirituality, and reading the Bible from women's perspective, etc. During the process, she's traveled to several countries. She knows over 10 languages, and in fact, 3 or 4 days from now, she's bound for Rome. That is Sister Firu for you. Next up, we have Dr. Syed Syed. Hello, sir. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Good to know. Syed sir is enjoying retirement life. He is a recently retired professor from the Aesthetics and Philosophy Department at the English and Foreign Languages University, Hyderabad. In fact, he completed his PhD from IIT Kanpur, then taught at Aligarh Muslim University for over a decade, and was visiting faculty member at EFLU and at the University of Hyderabad. He was also a Charles Wallace Visiting Fellowship at Liverpool University. That is Dr. Said for you. Next up, we have Sister Noella D'Souza. Hello, Noella. How are you?
Hi, well, thanks.
Noella belongs to the missionaries of Christ Jesus. She's trained in education, in psychotherapy, and in counseling. In fact, Noella has worked in education since 1976 as a psychotherapist, as a counselor. She works with homemakers who have problems with identity, with self esteem, with self efficacy, and self worth. Noella is also a member of Satyashodak, a women's collective, and brings justice to cases of sexual abuse, primarily in the Archdiocese of Mumbai. Her varied involvement with the Christian Church has enabled her to work in retreats, renewal courses, and facilitations at provincial assemblies. Last, but definitely not the least, we have Chrisanne Creado. Hello, Chrisanne. Thanks for taking the time today.
Hi, Neil. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Because Chrisanne is a very busy person. She's an educational consultant and she's a trainer with extensive classroom experience for more than 14 years. She's taught psychology and the theory of knowledge to IB students. She has a bachelor's degree from St. Xavier's, Mumbai, and a master's degree in social psychology from the University of Mumbai. In addition, she also has a postgrad diploma in counseling from the Xavier's Institute of Counseling Psychology, Mumbai. Noella has taught a lot of people who may be classified
Chrisanne.
in my category, the educated middle class. And in fact, let's just begin the discussion here. Before we begin the discussion, I guess I must say that questions are for the panelists are open. Just type in a sentence or two on Facebook Live, and we'll try to get back to you if we have time. Sister Noella, I'm sorry, beg my pardon, Chrisanne. I was wondering that because you had so much experience with teaching people like me, the educated middle class, from my perspective, I see that we are living in a hyper capitalist, materialist, consumerist era. Call it what you will. It's a rat race because us members of the middle class are struggling for productivity, for vertical growth in our industry or in our college life. Of course, the lower class is struggling for sustenance and survival. So it's horrible for everyone, especially the market forces during COVID. What I want to know is that in this fiercely competitive age, it's pretty much a rat race, and there is so much processing required, so much stamina, so much endurance and consistency from person from people of our age, of my age at least. Amidst all this productivity, how much time realistically must a person afford for themselves?
Okay, wow. Give me a minute or two to digest all of that. Um, I
We're starting off
believe,
easy here.
I believe honestly that because identity and self is so unique to every individual. Uh, how much time will also be variable. You know. But when it comes to understanding oneself and self concept, unless one takes the time out to be with themselves without the noise of being, defined, even when people ask, how do you define yourself, it's always in relation to somebody else. Me as a I am so and so, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, it's always in relation to something else. And what happens is, as those relationships increase and you wear these multiple concepts of you in definition to your family, your society, you sometimes may be bifurcating so extensively that you may actually lose touch with your authentic self. So I believe everyone should be taking that time out, whether it is meditation, whether it's just a moment of silence to sort of say, who am I? What makes me? What drives me? Like you said, if you're driven by only productivity or capitalism or only monetary goals, then is that who you are? One of the reasons why so many people are unhappy in their lives is because they've lost touch with what we call your authentic self. And as the gap widens, that's where the mental health suffers.
It's interesting because we spoke about trying to find time for ourselves. In the times that I choose to be free, I sort of end up on my Instagram or my Facebook. I'm feeling this pressure because everyone's playing a guitar, right? Everyone's got this new job. Everyone suddenly just got published somewhere. And it brings this anxiety in me that I'm wasting time by using it as free time. I'm sort of interested to know how that can be viewed as a good thing, spending free time or giving time for yourself.
So one is, the first mistake that we make is we use our free time to look at others' lives, specifically for the generation that's online, right?
Hmm.
Again, you're consuming. What are you consuming? People's images on Instagram, people's stories on Facebook. When you're consuming things like that, inadvertently what you're doing is you're making a comparison. Sometimes it's a upward comparison. Oh my god, I wish. And what we don't understand is all of it is curated content. It is again artificial representation. Influencers are taking 20, 30 photographs before they publish one thing, right? It is absolutely further away from your authentic self. Now there's this whole new movement where I woke up like this, which is supposed to be natural, but it's full of filters, right? So whether it's I'm wearing makeup today, whether it's coming to a panel like with your clean I was born this way look, or whether it was um, spending time online takes away from that. So I'm saying if you have to spend time with yourself, I think first is quiet time, which is very hard for people to actually be alone. One of what the pandemic gave us as a gift was that ability to have
Be
that
alone.
isolation. But like what you said, positive isolation. So you're not making that immediate comparison every time you go up online, and then that's where the anxiety is coming from. Somebody's playing guitar, somebody's cooking, someone. How many people are baking in the pandemic, right? And everyone, all those who didn't do it felt inadequate. But it's you define what is your reality.
That's very true, actually. And I wouldn't want to restrict this discussion only to the middle class, even though most of our target audience does come from there, and everyone is listening to this online. So I guess I want to ask, and I think Noella would be the perfect person to ask this, because in your time, Noella, with Away Abacus or other places and other places, you have worked with tribals, you have worked with Dalits, underprivileged children, and so many people of the lower class. Not to put them in a category by using that term so brazenly. You work to instill not only knowledge, but also gender equality, morality. In the most, and this is my question, in the most formative years of their lives, when you have taught them and seen these changes happen, what strategies do you use, or how do you see their process of them growing and recognizing their sense of self and becoming happy or realizing their potential?
Um, Let me start by just a short note on the different categories you have made.
So,
Tribals are very egalitarian. The women in tribal society have a very good place in their society. Whether it's the Northeast, which has a matriarchal society, whether it's the Adivasis in Odisha and Jharkhand, they have a very good place in their society. Regarding Dalits, I had never, maybe as strategy, never ever worked with Dalits. Otherwise, we'd be defeating our own purpose to say we don't have a caste system and we don't want a caste system. We do have a
that's
caste
very
system.
true.
We don't want a caste system. So, in all the government schools I work in, we work across the board. They are lower income groups, better to classify class wise rather than caste wise, if you get me. And the strategies we use is really to bring real life into the classroom. I mean, with history and geography, nobody can live after 12th standard or after 10th standard. What is history and how is history and geography going to help them? So we bring real life into the classroom. We talk about caste, this curse of the last 3,000 years. And yes, we really, one of our uh, sessions, the children have to make bhel puri. So one will bring a tomato, the other one will bring an onion, the third one will bring some kurmura, the fourth some chilies. So regardless of caste, which is very prevalent in every class, they have to come together to make the bhel puri and eat it together. So that's just symbolic about how we treat caste. Then, of course, we talk about tribes, we talk about gender, class, democracy, economic inequality, all the things they will be dealing with in their mohallas, all the things they'll be dealing with in their slums. And progress, what is progress? Progress, does it mean that we have so many flyovers in 1 year, 53 flyovers we got a few years ago? Or does it mean 2 square meals a day? Things like
That
that.
is
And we make,
very much that is very much the crux of what I'm trying to ask, because this is something that I can't relate to. My problem, or the problem of the middle class, is a fulfillment one.
is
But
a
for people, it's a fulfillment one. How do I recognize my potential? How do I get a great job? But and how to look after my mental health. But for many people, a problem is not only about mental health, but also about urgent monetary needs. You know, so it seems to me that if you want to call it objectively, of course, no emotion should be put in an objective sense, but they have a worse hand. They have to look for happiness and they have to look for daily survival. So I'm just interested to know how that process works over a period of years.
uh, Neil, we are training them to be citizens of tomorrow. Okay, we're training them to get in touch with, or be responsible for their own lives. And in that sense, that in itself is an attainment. Now, how they're going to get all their freebies and how they're going to be financially, I cannot say that. I really, neither do I want to be a forecaster. That is not my forte. I'm training them to be leaders tomorrow. So, for instance, let me give you a small example about what I mean. One of our students, one of the students of 20 years ago, got married, and he came and introduced his wife to us. And the wife told us, he showed me two photograph albums. One was of his family, and the other one was of Sangati, your program. And that is how much he loved the program and how much it developed him as a human being. So I can give you, from my point of view as an educator, I can tell you what it is. Now, how they're going to earn their livelihood is anyone's guess.
It
Because you
seems
can be
like
a BA, you can be an MA, and be a rickshaw puller, as you can see.
it does
So,
seem like this in this anecdote. It was probably the sense of community that you formed that sort of maybe stayed with them, and that is why they remember the organization after so long.
yeah.
But all right, then I guess we should be more universal in our approach, and uh, I think Professor Said would be very apt in answering this question, because as the centuries have passed, you know, what little I know of philosophy is that the school has become clear on this issue of truth. You know, we live in this environment today of constant discovery, constant redefinition, and say, for example, the school of epistemology. After, at one point, it said, okay, your mind is the truth, what you see. And then people started to question what you get in your mind. Is that really the best version of reality? So, even today, even now, if I can use an extreme example, as an amateur philosopher, I can't say this event is happening with absolute certainty, because I could be dreaming, you all could be hallucinations or something like that. So I feel like now that we are in a relatively futuristic age, there is no absolute good, no absolute bad, no absolute heaven, no absolute hell. There is a there is an uncertainty behind every life decision we take. Or we took, you know, should I take this job? Was it the right choice marrying him 5 years ago? Should I take my therapist's advice? And I feel like this uncertainty in choice, whether in the past or in the present, it can cause a sort of anxiety. So, my question really here is, what are the ways, first, in your knowledge and experience, that this anxiety gets destroyed, can be turned into enthusiasm, eagerness, or something like that?
Well, just minor clarification about philosophy, that from the very beginning, in all traditions, there have been two distinct streams, one to do with the world, the universe, the world, the reality, what's real, what's not. The other is, in one way or the other, about the question, what is a good life? How should one live? Not in the moral sense, by your own lives, on your own terms, from your own perspective. What is a good life? What kind of life do you think is worth living? Now, I may not be answering your question very directly, but I'd like to make a few comments and you can see whether they lead anywhere. The first thing that I think is that technology really doesn't change things as much as we tend to imagine. Most technology only enhances our capabilities, our vulnerabilities, our tendencies, and so on. It's like a telescope magnifies your vision. A car or a spaceship or anything, it simply increases the speed with which you can move. So technology doesn't essentially alter existence. By that I mean human existence. And the middle classes reflect. You're right that the middle classes are what we need to focus at. It's not because we, most of us, belong to the middle classes or because they are more important than the other people, but because the middle classes represent that time, that space where you have your material needs taken care of, and yet you are further from attaining fulfillment, contentment, what you believe is happiness. That is the critical, what do you call it, segment. That you're just about having fulfilled your material, immediate survival needs, and yet you're falling short of that thing that you want to attain, whatever name you want to give it. And all this comes down to alterity in the sense of our relation to other people, the other. Now, we tend to, I'll say a few outrageous things, and I'm sure you won't be surprised by that. One is one of the things that have done large scale damage is the obsession with identity in terms of caste or gender or community or religion or profession. The question that whether, on the Delphic temple it is written, two things are written, inscriptions on the Delphic temple. One is, know thyself. The other is, nothing to exist. Just give me one.
You know, Chrisanne actually said something very interesting on the chat, but she said technology can also make access to technology easier and society more egalitarian. So now I'm
Sorry.
wondering if you could expand on what you just said.
No, sorry.
Sorry, Joel. I was reading a comment that Chrisanne had said on the private chat,
Okay.
and I wanted to know if she had some more thoughts on that.
Yeah, so let me finish. Okay.
Sure, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was saying that the question, know thyself or who am I, we try to constantly answer it in terms of some identity or the other. So identity, if you notice, has resulted, whether it is religious identity or social identity or any other. This thing called identity is something which has become a nuisance, and we have not found the ways to deal. My solution is to erase identity in the sense that you have to find the human that you are and shed all other forms of identity. as a procedure, as a method. That is one thing. The second is, as a lot of mystics, particularly the Sufis or even the Advaitins, everybody has said, the self is the problem. So the constant obsession with the self to either improve it or to make it perfect. So the the point I'm trying to make is that the self is not something in search of for which you have to find a solution. The self is the problem. And then, how does this happen? What spoils the notion of the self? This is the main point I wanted to make actually. That there is an entire terminology which defines what we call civilization or life, modern life particularly. Terms like success, efficiency, competence, achievement, even the word fulfillment sometimes. No, these are all traps. That what's the big deal about being efficient? What's the big deal about having achieved something? What does that even mean? What is wrong with being a total non-achiever? So these are some of the terms that have been inducements, the stick and carrot of society, where we have fallen into the trap. Oh, I got to succeed. I should be successful. As you know, in the American vocabulary, the worst thing you can say to another person is, you're a loser. Now, what's wrong with being a loser? What's wrong with being a non achiever? Out of these traps, then there is nothing like tranquility or equanimity of the self. Yeah,
But I
that,
do wonder, just to play point counterpoint, that if I do realize that I don't really care about money, or one doesn't care about social standing or something like that. And but I do recognize what I do care for, which is
sorry.
basically traveling the world. You know, I can't have one. I can't have both at the same time because I would need to earn to get the money to travel, and that would mean entering into social relations. It
Entering
means
into.
entering into social relations, with your boss, or doing the ladder, climbing the ladder, getting money to do what I really want. And I'm just wondering, just to play point counterpoint, how often or how much can you do what you want to do without having to sacrifice what you don't want to do but you have to? Because I can have a goal, but the path to getting to the goal may be something I don't want to do. I don't want to walk the path. I don't want to do a 12-hour job, but it's something I may have to do.
Like that's the subtext of what I've been saying. That starting from education, we have downgraded the role of enjoy. We tell our children, our students, get good grades, be top of the class. We don't say enjoy whatever it is you are reading. We don't stress enough. Anything is worthwhile only if you are enjoying. If you enjoy the rat race, nothing is wrong in itself with the rat race or whatever you call it, or climbing the ladder. The only point is, are you enjoying it? If it makes you happy, you're enjoying it, you find it fun, do it. But not under pressure of expectations from
That
the
was,
others.
yeah. Actually, I'd like to bring Sister Fido into the discussion here because what Sayeed just said at the end of having no expectations, not maybe not putting too much pressure on yourself when it comes to terminology. the societal domain of being productive or being efficient and all these. Look, because you lived a very unique life as compared to someone like me because you have chosen to give so many of your years, help so many people, and to serve a purpose, a higher purpose, you know. And I'm curious to know that your work for so many years has come out of this desire to be humble, to be giving, to be generous, which comes from whatever religion, Bible, whatever. That is the end result. This is a form of nationality that is putting yourself below a higher power. It's no longer pressure on the individual. It's
No
more
longer pressure on individual. Okay.
because I am living for myself. I am freaking out. What do I do? You're serving God. You're serving a community. You're serving people. So I just wanted just an insight into how different or how advantageous this alternative form of living can be.
Okay. You're talking about in some way, like how does my faith relationship helps me in my real life? Is it? Is that what you're trying to
Yeah,
say?
yeah,
Yeah. First of all, I think it's very important to understand what is this faith relationship with God is all about. I think most of us, particularly in India, are born into a particular family belonging to certain religion, whatever. As I see it, okay, as a child, as an adolescent, number of things are told to you, taught to you. At a certain point, all this has to be questioned and should go into crisis. If you really want to elaborate your personal relationship with God and discover who is God to you, okay, who is God in your life, okay, unless you answer this question using a rationality, okay, this whole thing of putting faith versus reason is a very very artificial thing because if you really believe that as a believer that God has given you everything, then even your reasoning is coming from God only, and God is not going to be jealous or put a stop to say don't use reason, believe whatever I'm saying. It's not going to happen like that. God would want you to use your reason to the full, question things, find out for things for yourself, and as a good parent would be happy to see you using all your talents, all your potential, your reasoning, your questioning, your crisis too. I don't think God is going to be threatened by that. God isn't so small as to be threatened by my questioning. So unless we do this process individually and personally, we will not come home the real sense. We will not feel at home. We will not with the core of ourselves. So whatever way we want to reach out to others should come from this core. You know, our topic today is being at home. It should spring from that, not from like I learned this from my religion says this, my Bible says this, or Quran or Gita says this, so I'm doing this. That is not going to work for a long time, and that's not going to give you really the peace, joy, and happiness and fulfillment in doing what you're doing. So first of all, I would say each one must personally, re-elaborate whatever so-called belief system one has inherited, whether it's religious belief system or any other belief system. Not to take things for granted, not even what is taught to us in our schools or education system. We need to question that to find what do I believe in, what are my priorities, what are my goals. Okay, so I went through that very very strongly in my 20s and all that. Actually
mm,
adolescent and went into the 20s, and I really question many things even as a religious. Okay, people who know me will know like I don't take things just like that, and therefore I studied even Bible in a very critical manner. Okay, that's why I take this session called reading the Bible from women's perspective. Okay, so
mm,
I don't take just like, because I believe that there is something deeper than that. And when you give this topic called homemakers, I found very interesting this word home. You know, with a similar sound with Om in our Indian language, It's something like being at home, and that real at home is coming from being God, with God, Om, deep down. So when we are at home with ourselves, at home with God, it is from that inner core that, reaching out to others comes. Okay, it is not so much to to achieve something, to show off something. It is something of a commitment which comes from the feeling that I am working with God and God is asking me to do this. I surrender myself to God unconditionally. I feel God loves me, God is with me, and God will give me the grace or the gift needed to carry out this task. I'll give you a simple example of Teresa of Avila. Okay, she's a saint,
Okay.
belongs to 16th century, a very powerful Spanish woman. Apart from being a saint, she is very much what's acknowledged in not only Spanish world but entire European nations. She has a very interesting, very witty expression. She will say, "Teresa can do nothing. Teresa and God can do something. Teresa, God, and money can do everything." She was also a builder and founder and things like that. Very practical woman. So being with God doesn't mean, being totally detached from material things, but understanding them in the right perspective, because God has given this everything, even the entire creation, God has given as gift. So you look at it from that perspective without trying to be possessive towards it, without trying to taking control over it. These are things meant for service. So you use them for people, for reach out to people, to do whatever. So you use them in their, what we say, in the sense as a means, not as an end in itself. So that gives you peace, because it is God who gives you peace ultimately. Another interesting expression of Teresa of Avila would say that would really define practically her philosophy, which is very, very interesting. She says something like this: "Let nothing disturb you, let nothing frighten you. All things are passing away. God never changes. Patience obtains all things. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone suffices." Okay. What does this mean? Basically, it's simply that what I've seen is this in my concrete life. Um, like as you said earlier, I too have anxiety sometimes when you take up some decisions or take up some particular project. Then I say, okay, I will do my best. The rest God does. And it really works, because I don't take up the part of anxiety. Anxiety, I say, you do it. I will do what I can. Then what about the result? I tell, okay, if it comes out fine, I'll tell you 90% and more times it comes out really brilliantly well. But if it doesn't come out well, it's fine. I did not do it for my glory, right? Okay, it's fine. Something good will come out of it. So you are detached from the ultimate, the result. You are interested in the process. In Indian philosophy we say nishkama karma. So you are not trying to derive some glory or some satisfaction from the results, but the process itself of working with people, reaching out to young people, women, entire experience is very, very enriching, and you receive much more than what you give. And that is where, it is God who working in you and through you. This is why I find, having God in your life gives you a lot of peace and calmness when you when you prepare for something, or when you plan for something. Because whereas I've seen people who are so-called atheists or agnostic, I don't want to judge actually, but I find they tend to control every little thing because they're afraid what will be the result. And I often have to tell them, I often tell them, please leave this here. You focus on what you're supposed to do, okay? What you want to do, and derive your joy in that, okay? Result will happen. It doesn't matter. Don't try to control every little thing. So that I think is the
I,
difference which faith gives me in my
I
whatever
do
work
think
I do, in terms of the focusing on your work, and being God is a partner in your life. I don't know if it makes sense what I said.
no, it did make a lot of sense. In fact, one thing that stuck with me was when you were talking about different kinds of people. There are 7 people in this
I
world.
cannot hear you, Dale. I can't
Sorry,
hear you.
am I audible now?
Yeah.
Better.
Okay. Uh, this is let's just have a more general discussion on this because there are a lot of people in this world, and it is inevitable that each person will have their own beliefs, which they come to after a sufficient amount of questioning. I don't know whom I'm just
Yeah,
going with the flow. Uh, my worry is that if I have recognized that this is what makes me happy and this is what helps my mental health or my spirit, how can I ensure that my belief does not affect the beliefs of others, does not bring discord into the community?
yeah,
Because it is inevitable that
yeah,
because there are so many people, you will have opposing beliefs.
yeah, yeah.
How do we make sure the fundamental
Respect.
incommensurate does not become hostile,
Yeah.
intolerant? So really, this question is open for anyone. Really.
Okay. Since I was talking about God, let me pick it up first. See, I look at it like this: my perception of God or my belief system is mine, which I have elaborated, and definitely it is limited. Okay, I'm a limited creature. It is not absolute, and what I believe today may not be the same thing what I believe 10 years from hence. Okay, so I should understand that my knowledge is limited, my experience of God is limited, and I cannot control God. And everyone's experience of God is different. God is much larger than my little box which I have put God in. And therefore the fundamental thing tells me I need to respect everyone, and that there may be somebody exactly opposite of me, and maybe very right, and maybe much more right than me. So that itself says, I have no authority to question, or I have no authority to reject someone or hate someone. Question, yes, we can always question, but reject or hate someone because someone holds a different perspective. Okay, because who knows, tomorrow I too may come to the same perspective. I do not know. Just now my perspective is this, and it's important that it's come out of my conviction, not because somebody has told me. And similarly, I guess others also have make their own journey. Okay, and secondly, like my perspective, God also is that. Uh, God, all that we see, people and creation are extensions of God. Everyone is an expression of God. So how do I not respect somebody else just because you know their perception is different? Okay, because everyone in some way, uh, projects that glory and that image and likeness of God, whether male or female, or whichever religion, whatever nationality. Everyone in some way carries that glory of God. So just because I don't understand, I have no right to reject it, or humiliate them, look down upon them, or as Professor was saying, all the identity thing that comes from insecurity. If I am not secure in who God is for me, and I am in God, then I have all these problems. I like what Jesus says, very interesting. Towards the end of his life, he says, "Make your home in me, and I in you." That's an invitation, all of us. We can say, make your home in God and God in you. I mean, when I see God in everyone, I think I will respect people no matter who they are, and no matter how much of conflict we have with each other. That's what I would see.
I uh, sort of have a counterpoint to this
Yeah.
because let's say, for example, there is a person. This is a very stupid example, but let's say a person hates cats, right? Cannot stand cats. A cat is an affront to their mental health or something like
Okay.
that.
Mm.
And you know, let's say this person is roommates with someone who loves cats, and this person keeps getting cats into the home space. It's a direct, it's a direct challenge to their mental health, you know, and it's something that they can't control again. So that point will bring a sort of point of confrontation. where one person wants to tell the other person, listen, I'm not comfortable with this. This engages me safely. Of course, a cat can be a substitute for anything in this example. But the other person says, no, this is my mental health. I love cats. This works for me. So you already have two equal rights opposing each other. You know, personal growth, personal journey is one thing, but if two personal journeys collide, like how do you instill tolerance in such a moment?
Can
Okay,
I
you're
ask?
asking me. Okay, I think
Yes,
Noella wanted to
go
answer.
ahead. Go ahead.
Noella can answer, and after it, if need be,
I
someone.
think mental health would I would say we're very healthy when we don't want to control anyone and we don't let anybody else control us. That's very true. I think there's a time in life where you outgrow the religion you have been brought up with. Let me give you an example. I am a Christian sister, a woman religious, and I've been working in a secular institute for the last 25 years. When you're working in a secular institute, you have to leave what you have come with and join a common platform. Join a common platform of people of others' religions, people of no religions, and work together. So then, what happens there? That's a different religion altogether, where you respect everybody, and that respect is total. What brings us together? Our passion for our work, our passion for equal and quality education for our children in government schools. That is a religion there. I mean, in different words. You use the cat and somebody else says Jesus and God and all that. But there are different words that come together like this. And I think living in India, which is such a diverse country as far as religions go, as far as cultures go, we have to feel at home in all culture. I feel very, very upset when I see, if I can mention, the way Muslims are treated. The a rickshawala was telling me yesterday, I was standing, there were about 300 people in front of me in the vaccination queue. And he says there was not a single Muslim. He was upset about it. Huh? He was really upset about it. And that also made me upset. Where is our common home? And India is our common home. Yeah.
I do think that managing to live in a community, you know, obviously beneficial to us as well as to them. So, I was actually curious to know whether is there any, maybe not theoretical, maybe semi-theoretical or practical, but are there any philosophers or philosophies which provide a version of a person being happy and the community being happy that you are a fan of?
That you're a
That that's your life, or he thinks that this is not fine, this guy thought, or something you were talking about, I guess.
Are you talking about that? Is there a philosophy which says the person is happy and the person is happy in the community? I did not follow your question properly.
Sort of, yes, because
Anil, you're not very distinct. Huh? I'm having a
We're
oh,
difficult.
right.
really struggling to hear you, Neil.
No, so sorry, so sorry. I think from the next session, I should get a proper mic for this. That's next time. I was just curious to know if there was some grounding or some semi-theoretical evidence of and of the individual managing to be relatively happy, as well as the entire community not getting affected by it. Am I clear now?
I'm not sure that I understood the question. I would rather answer something to the earlier uh, thing which you posed. In the
Go
opposing
ahead.
point of view, what do we do? Okay. See, I don't look at any relationship as very smooth all the time. Okay. In any relationship, conflict is part of relationship, and conflicts are always on points of view. Okay, even in a very loving relationship, even when couples get married out of love and things like that, a time will come you realize this one stands for one thing, another one stands for another thing. Beginning from small things like holidays, children's education, whatever, there will be diverse reasons why they disagree. Okay, and I think if they commit themselves to talk about this disagreement, even though disagreement may still remain, the the love and the understanding grows. A relationship grows the measure we know each other. Okay, even in India for that matter, in all these conflicts between our different whatever communities and religions and all that, I think one commitment which all of us need to do is trying to know each other. Okay, rather than just build on prejudices and spread prejudices about each other, we need to commit ourselves. The perspective may be very opposing, different. Okay, a perspective of a monotheistic religion is different from a perspective where the religion is more so-called polytheistic. Okay, but we need to understand, and we need to therefore, even though there is conflict coming out of that, try to engage in this, dialogue, in this whatever, talk to each other. We may not agree, but when we talk to each other, we get to know each other, and that actually deepens relationship, and that can help us to become more respectful towards each other. That's how I think we need to go forward when there is different points of view, rather than othering people, us versus them, we are better, they are worse, they are like this, we are like this. All this is, childish, just childish,
That's very
purely.
true. And may I add, it's very excellently put. We're actually really running short of time here. I think we only have time for some closing comments. Uh, there are a lot of people listening to this, knowing full well they can't leave home, that there is a lockdown. Maybe this ends a month from now, maybe it ends a year from now. Cannot say. But I would like to hear the thoughts of everyone, maybe just briefly for a minute or so, on what advices, general rules of thumb you might have for people who are currently in this frustrating situation,
For people,
who are currently in this frustrating situation, which is all of us. So yeah, closing comments. Anyone can go first.
we've talked on a wide variety of things today. All of us have such different perceptions, such different perspectives, that really it's not possible to come to a conclusion. And all of us have said things that are very profound in our own way, from our own fields. So I think, yes, it leaves us with a lot of food for thought. What is home? Your viewers will have plenty of things to call home and feel happy in any one of them. And again,
That's very good. Yeah.
it's their identity what brings them close to where they are.
For me, honestly, to wrap up, just to feel at home with oneself, um, let go of comparison, find a way to serve others. And I loved what Dr. Syed said, humanity over identity. And once you accept that other people are going to be different and you are who you are, just be grateful for that. I think that an attitude of gratitude goes a long way to, keeping oneself grounded. Like Phil was talking about, that humility that you feel is when you recognize the divinity in somebody else, right? So, thank you.
Well, for my, as they say, 2 cents worth, what I would say is you're not so bloody important. You're not as important. You don't matter. So stop thinking about yourself. I should be this. Maybe I'm not good enough. I'm not virtuous enough. I'm not smart enough. You don't matter. There are people suffering around you. Look at other people. Look at what's happening around you and see what you can do. It's a kind of inverted narcissism. Oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. You know, why is this obsession with how you are, what you are? I mean, there are other people. There's suffering all around you. You don't have. You just have to open your eyes to see people who are so much less fortunate than you. Reach out to them, make them smile if you can't do anything else. I would say begin with that. I'm not saying that's the whole thing. Begin with that. Maybe the rest will
Just want to
follow.
add
Maybe
that
it will open to you.
Noella just want to add that Noella just typed ego in capitals.
Anyway, it has been nice to
Yeah,
participate in
yeah.
this
It's
discussion.
been very enriching listening to each one. And although I don't say concluding remark, I wanted to say something about this homemaker word because often it's associated with women. But I'm thinking in our patriarchal society, you know, it's a woman who moves from her parents' home to her husband's home, right? So she should be first made to feel at home by the man who takes her in. Okay, so the first homemaker should be man. If he is able to create a home for the woman, then she'll become homemaker for everybody else also. So I think the men should stop thinking that providing house and providing furnishings is their duty. No, creating a home, being a homemaker should be for their responsibility because they are the one who welcome another woman into their lives and to another home because she's coming in a very insecure situation. So this is
Right.
beyond gender. Okay, so I want to say this thing very clearly because although it is about you said homemaker as individual, but I wanted to make this point exactly because this word homemaker is associated with women who are married and not salaried. Okay, so it's a very degrading way of putting it. But I would think everybody should be a homemaker, including corporate world. If a place becomes a home, if people have sense of belonging, people will produce more, work with
I
much more
couldn't
sense of belongingness. So I think
I
home should be everywhere. Home. That's why I said home is God. Okay, home should be the entire world, whether it's private or public. It shouldn't be
That's very
reduced only to
in
women.
fact I couldn't agree more with what you said about the home space or the corporate space. We actually have talks lined up for exactly these kind of issues. So that is for later. For now, I'd like to thank Mr. Filu, Sayeed sir, Noella, and Chrisanne for this very mature conversation with which I could barely keep up. I'd like to thank all of you for your time this evening. We will wind up now. Just like to end with a reminder that Tell Me Your Story calls for submissions on the story prompt homemakers. If your story is good enough, it may be published on via Amazon. Registrations are also open for the writing program season 3 in association with Simon and Schuster. Find the details for both on tellmeyourstory.biz. That's tellmeyourstory.biz. We hope to hear from you. Right. Our next session, which is day after tomorrow, is a solo discussion with Indian author Radhika Swarup. The topic is Can Recollection Prepare Dysfunctional Families in Discussion of Civil Life. Civil Lines is her book. We need to start talking about the roles of family members in the homemaking process over a period of years. Anyway, that's day after. For now, we will take care leave. I would like to thank all of my panel speakers here. Thank you, Said sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Noella, for coming.
Thank you.
So glad you could make the time,
Thank you,
sister.
thank you.
And
Thanks
thank you, Sister
everyone.